give it another 15 seconds or so, Wit, and then it is all yours.
All right. Thank you. Fortunately, I'm not running a timer, so...
You can go now, Wit.
All right, great. Welcome to the last Kubernetes community meeting of the month of August. I am Whit Morris. I work for Simple, and I need to remind you that this is being recorded and live streamed, so be mindful of what you're saying. I've also been told that there was a hot mic last time, so if we're not speaking, let's all mute. So I am an engineering manager at Simple, and I work in particular on a team called Service Delivery, and we're kind of charged with bringing the latest generation of our platform, which we serve all of the applications that Simple uses to help make banking more humane. We're porting that from our digital bespoke AWS image-based infrastructure over to Kubernetes, and we're getting ready to roll our first applications in the prod, hopefully by the end of the year. So, and I just want to thank y'all for having me. I'm excited to be here. I love this community. I love to see all the amazing things coming out of it. So, without further ado, shall we proceed? Sound good? All right. I think first up is Andrew with developer documentation for Kubernetes.
Yeah, hi. I'm Andrew Chen, aka Chenapis. I'm a tech writer for Google and in the SIGDocs group. And in our SIGDocs meeting this week, one issue was brought to our attention. Maybe if you could present that. There should be a link in the meeting notes. Anyway, it's about adding documentation for Kubernetes code contributors. And Paul Mori opened it, and Michael. Always wants to go to full screen. And then Michael Halstenblass has been talking with us about it. And so there's a significant interest to add this kind of documentation. But before, we weren't sure who owns it or what the process would be, because it seems like it's going to touch on 3 other SIGs as well, API machinery. The user, experience, and there was one more. Contributor experience and architecture and API machinery. So I wanted to sort of just get the ball rolling, open up a discussion, figure out how we would kind of approach this. Because obviously I think the docs would probably end up on the Kubernetes.io website, but we would probably need to coordinate what people think should be in them, kind of what they should look like, and that sort of thing. And I've been working on a larger project called User Journeys. So the idea is to create kind of a portal for different personas, and so we can take them through specific paths in the documentation for their needs. And this seems like this would fit into that as well, which is why I'm kind of shepherding this along. Does anyone have any thoughts?
I would start with a thanks for starting this discussion, and there has been some additional discussion about whether or not Kubernetes.io should remain very user-focused versus contributor-focused. So that may be part of this conversation in your issue 892 as well. But this should be a really important thing, and you're right, it's going to cross-cut contributor experience as well as architecture and probably API machinery. So it will be awesome to figure out who the right people are to help. This is the community guide. Yes, sorry. We just had everybody arrive presuming that there was a demo. So maybe you could summarize again, Andrew. Sorry.
So there's an issue opened up, and there seems to be a lot of interest in adding some documentation specifically for code contributors to the Kubernetes project. Because right now, all of our documentation is more focused on like users, like application developers, like cluster operators, that sort of thing. But there seems to be a need to kind of help onboard people who are contributing to the Kubernetes code base. You know, showing them maybe some design patterns, common design patterns that are used within Kubernetes, things like that, so that they, to help guide them when they write code for Kubernetes. So the question has kind of been like, who owns this, or who should own this, and how do we kind of work together, and and what should the end product look like?
So I need a volunteer to drive it and find contributors who are knowledgeable to contribute content. The existing docs are in the community repo, in the contributor devel directory. I begged for help a while ago in organizing those and didn't really get much help. A couple of people made a couple of attempts that didn't get finished. So I think it would be a great thing. I do think the documentation, there are multiple audiences for documentation, as we discussed in the TOC discussions and things like that. There are various flavors of end users, like cluster admins, application operators, application developers. Kubernetes.io should be focused on users. There are developers who are building on top of Kubernetes using the client libraries that we publish. I think that is fair game because they're a different flavor of user, basically. They're using Kubernetes, but they need to build some tools or additional things on top. So it might make sense to have how to use documentation and how to use the client libraries, like the API documentation is there already, and we already envision using the tabbed approach to have different show different ways of accessing the API there. And so some things like how to use CRD, which is intended to be used for people to build on top of Kubernetes, things we wouldn't add to Kubernetes, could belong there for that persona or audience, developers building on top of Kubernetes. For contributors who are contributing to Kubernetes projects in Kubernetes orgs and repos, I think it's fine for that information to stay on GitHub. If we want to put it into another site, that would be fine. I don't think it belongs on Kubernetes.io. It's still very overloaded.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be moved into a different place from where it is in the current community repo, but I would want to preserve Git history when we move it, like we did last time. But I think the biggest blocker is actually getting contributions from people who actually know what's going on to help with that. To people who know what the current state is, who know what the history is.
So I will just say, from a contributor perspective, it can be a little confusing that you're supposed to go to one place for one set of docs and a completely different place for a different set of docs. I think this idea that Kubernetes.io should be only user-facing, I'm hoping that is documented somewhere. And yeah, I think it just seems weird to me that developer docs should be devoted to a lesser level of user experience or certification or what have you, right? Like, I think developer documentation is just as important as user documentation.
You mean contributor documentation, just to be clear, to avoid confusion.
Okay, all right.
I don't disagree theoretically, Aaron, but the problem is getting people to actually work on documentation has been the single number one hardest thing on this entire project for the entire history of the project. Right?
So, let me finish. So I agree that we have a lot of content in an existing location over which very little oversight. People don't have, we don't have, I think what I heard you say is if we want somebody to create the developer guide focused on A, B, and C, that it's not something that somebody can just open a pull request and do. It's going to take concerted effort over weeks, potentially months, and that it should be a single individual or a single team of individuals who does this. It's not something that can ad hoc be organically contributed to with little pebbles, right? It's an entire boulder that needs to be pushed up a hill. And I think instead of getting caught in should it be site, should it be community, the question might be better phrased as, should we dredge through the existing content, or would it be worthwhile to declare bankruptcy and try yet another iteration of creating a bunch of guides?
I don't have a problem with declaring bankruptcy if we want to do that. I think what the existing docs are maybe at least somewhat useful for is identifying some of the topics that belong in the documentation.
Michael has offered to do a survey of what exists, which is awesome. So thank you, Michael. And from there, we can figure out maybe a plan. And Andrew, you saw this issue. Were you trying to champion and lead a group and rally a team behind you? Or are you looking for someone to take that?
No, I can do that part, but what I was wondering in terms of like the governance and stuff is like, do we create like a working group that's kind of cross-SIG, and you know, find some volunteers from each of those SIGs and kind of you know, put together a plan for this, or like how would the mechanics kind of work in terms of like working together?
I
For what
don't.
it's worth, I've done that with SIG contributors. I've asked a few people if they're interested in joining a working group.
This is Harris. I'll help / co-lead with you, Andrew, or however we should do it. We should probably do it in the contributor experience group, though. I feel like that does make the most sense.
Yeah, and you can see my last feed for help if you search our Kubernetes dev for our contributor docs need love, where I did somewhat an inventory there of what existed at that time. I think that was the fall maybe.
I think your pleas for help are really awesome at enumerating the sheer scale of things we have to address. I think what we're looking at here is trying to scope down and focus effort in a specific area.
Yeah, and so what came out of the last feed for help was a slight refactoring of the documentation of the PR workflow. This is an example. I guess not much of the iceberg was chipped off, but at least some progress was made, identified like a little space where we could improve things. But that's where, since that time, and we've also had some of the documentation fragments, like you did an awesome job of documenting some of the automation in the PR agreements, but it's like in a completely disconnected place from the other documentation that we try to consolidate. So
yeah, I agree. And my experience with that, just for what it's worth to those who wish to undertake this, is I found I would sometimes get derailed into trying to document the state of the world, and the discussions can sometimes get derailed into the state of the world is not the ideal state. Let's try and figure out what we want the ideal state to be, and figure out how we get from the and so the discussion started like trying to craft what the ideal state is. I'm like, I get that, that's cool, but just document what it is today first, so that then we can get the path from where we are today to where we want it to be. I would say there's probably a little bit of that in terms of like API guidelines and stuff. Like I am imagining there are probably some organic conventions that are followed today that maybe aren't super well documented and maybe aren't like the best habits to have, but that's what everybody's doing. Maybe we should document that sort of stuff.
yeah, I think a few of these things, like the API conventions, we're trying to update. That doc is in the contributors devel directory, kind of undertaking that in SIG architecture. SIG API machinery, in addition to the guide for how to build APIs, what we're looking to do is actually try to create an SDK to make it easier to build APIs. So not just documentation. I mean, we do need to document the state that exists, and that's again a situation where that documentation is spread in multiple different places. Like now, some of the API machinery is split into separate repos. Documentation is in those repos.
I hate to cut you off, but we've got to. I think we need to move along. It would be okay to take this offline?
Yeah.
Thank you for keeping track of time.
All right, thank you so much. Well, next up we have release updates with 1.8.0 with Caleb Miles.
Hey, all. First big bullet point is that code freeze is tomorrow, November 1st. We plan on practically enforcing this by 6 p.m. Pacific time. So all your pull requests must have LGTM and approve by then, and we'll let the queue drain over the weekend. There's Maru's added some great automation around cleaning up the issues in the milestone. Maru, you want to say a few words about that?
Sure. It has sent an email to QDev, SIGLEADs, and SIG release. So if you want more detail, you can go there. But essentially, we just want a little bit more detail on issues remaining in milestones. So there's more signal for release and the SIGLEADs to know what is still remaining. It'll also help with the release note process, which also depends on some of that labeling. So as of Friday, there'll be a bot that will enforce if there are SIG labels, if there's a kind label, there's a priority label. If those labels aren't present on non-blocking issues after 7 days, those issues will automatically be removed from the milestone. There'll be instructions as to what needs to happen. Will be commented, so it won't just be done blindly. Issues removed from the milestone will be labeled so that SIGLEADs will be able to find them, or those can be able to find them. Blockers will never be removed, we'll just manage them. This is the first step in a bunch of things that a joint document that Tilbog put together. I was proposing to make issue sort of maintenance a little bit more automated, and there'll be similar sort of announcements in the coming weeks around further work. So that's all.
Awesome. Thanks, Maru. There are some challenges in ensuring that the release is high quality and ships on time. One of the first ones is we still need most SIGs to check off that they have added their changes and that they are ready to go in the release notes draft. There's a link in the meeting notes, and there's a checklist at the top for SIGs to signal that they have finished. So please try and do that as early as possible, and we will continue to bug you until it's completed. Ihor, do you want to speak a little bit about the open issues and the 1.8 milestone?
Sure.
Or the feature issues, sorry.
Yeah, feature issues. So again, code freeze is common, and if you're a feature owner, please ensure that your feature that is targeted for 1.8 release, it is currently labeled with 1.8 milestone, is going to be present at this release with the actual code background. If your feature currently has Kubernetes 1.8 milestone in the features repo, but it's not expected to be present in the release itself, please move it to the next milestone. And at the moment, we have more than 60 feature issues for this release. It is an exceptionally high number compared to the previous releases, and probably we may expect that this number will be decreased with the actual number of the features. Also, as you remember, we are maintaining the feature tracking spreadsheet, mostly for the visualization purposes and to track the docs. So if you have a feature for 1.8, please ensure that your feature is also present in the feature tracking spreadsheet. All the links you may find in the meeting notes. Thank you, Caleb.
Thank you, Ihor. Continuing with the challenges, there are many issues in the 1.8 milestone against Kubernetes, and as Maru mentioned, there's automation that is going to start the demo tests. Some of them are the usual suspects, but we need everyone's help to get the release over the line. Finally, there are many pull requests with release note label set on them that may not be describing work that actually needs a release note. And so for future PRs, please be mindful of what you believe actually needs a release notes, because it is a lot of work to go ahead and curate that list from the PRs. In the release notes draft 4.18, there's a link to an issue that Brian Grant filed about better release notes guidance, so please take a look at that. And I think that is it. Does anyone have any questions about the release process? 4.18. No? Okay, back to you.
Thank you so much, Caleb. All right, Wojtek, 1.7? 5?
I don't know that we have an update from Wojtek this morning, or this evening in his time zone.
All right, should we? Oh, no? Yes?
I don't think so.
Okay. Should we move along to Anthony and 1.6.10?
Yes, actually, I can give a little bit of an update on 1.7.5 because there's a related issue that affects Stapleton when you're upgrading from 1.6 to 1.7, and we put out both 1.6.9 last week and 1.7.5 this week as part of a two-part approach to mitigating this. So in the end, what this means is if you're going to upgrade from 1.6 to 1.7, the safest path is to first upgrade to 1.6.9 and then upgrade to 1.7.5 or higher. And so now that 1.7.5 is out, we're going to send an announcement about this issue and reporting out it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Anthony. Any more questions here, or should we move on to SIG updates? All right, without further ado, SIG updates. First, we have SIG on-prem with Marco Cheppy.
Hey everyone. So on SIG on-prem, we kind of wrapped up on our demonstrations and discussions and overviews of kind of the tools that allow you to either deploy or manage Kubernetes on bare metal and on-premise environments. We've also started working on drafting documentation to help around certain scenarios on-premise that don't necessarily translate very well to public clouds. Things like ingress and firewall management that most clouds have available that you can plug into the cloud provider or otherwise. So our work's been helping to document kind of best practices, at least starting points for people looking to tackle these topics. It's one of the more requested things that we go through in our SIGs that we talk through. So that's where a lot of our focus is in making sure we document a starting point how to achieve these more cloud-native functions on the premise, and then working to improve those inside of Kubernetes.
Thank you, Marco. Any questions? You're being asked who is that on the beach?
That's my grandmother.
All right.
Wishful thinking of being on a beach right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Marco. Next, we have SIG multi-cluster and or Christian.
Yeah, Christian, I'll be giving the update. So I'm glad to be giving the first multi-cluster, SIG multi-cluster update. I'll get into why we have a rename. So the members of the SIG Federation team, I'd say for the last 2 months have been having discussions based on just the general effort that's in Federation and the use cases that users are trying to use Federation for. And we somewhat come to the conclusion that we needed to have a face-to-face because there were multiple concerns in different areas. So we did have that face-to-face earlier this month. It was extremely valuable for a few reasons. The main contributors to the SIG itself were present. So Red Hat, Huawei, Google, CoreOS. We also had the customer at Atlassian join in. And we wanted to have a face-to-face just to discuss what everybody's use cases were, or I should say what their users' use cases were, and how Federation was or was not addressing these use cases. So what came out of that meeting was that there's a general concern over the path to GA for Federation what it is today. And that's made it a little bit difficult in that Federation is a kind of a large monolith with the goal being to federate every object in the Kubernetes API, so it's just kind of a long-term project that doesn't seem to be able to get to GA anytime soon, and people are having problems that they want to solve today. So our approach, not very complicated, is to kind of decompose that effort. So Federation is not going away, but I'll just look at the details of what we mean by decomposition. One of the areas that we're going to be focusing on as a SIG is separating guess what we call admin level operations from app level operations, what would be workloads. So cluster admin and cluster admin and app admin. And the other part is what we call a cluster registry. So first I'll just talk about the cluster registry. So if, for people familiar with the objects in Kubernetes, one of the objects that's exclusive to Federation is the cluster object. We found that both through CoreOS's input that they could use the cluster object to store metadata on cluster information as to where API endpoints are. Now the goal for that is to really pare down that object and possibly run it as an API server to store metadata. That was well received. From a user perspective, one way to kind of convey that idea is to say that the cluster registry is a way to host a queue config, and that was attractive for many people on the stage as the first kind of consumable project that has a foreseeable path to GA. So that's one working group. So the other kind of working group as part of the SIG is the cluster and app admin. Now what that working group has done is they've separated those two areas, and they're having separate meetings. Still being use case driven, but they're prioritizing some resources approaches to again have some path to GA. Do not necessarily try to federate the entire API, as was the case previously. So the Federation Control Plan, I just want to be clear, still exists, even despite the rename of the SIG, but the scope is being reduced so that it's supportable. So one of the things that they're looking at is, like, these are some of the issues that we brought up, is really the path forward for annotations, because right now the difference between a federated object and an object that you see in base Kubernetes is just kind of covered up through annotations, and that has to be supportable in some way in the future. The other one is version skew between the Federation control plane and the clusters themselves. So we want to try to see if we can support at least more than one release, maybe two, between the base clusters and the Federation control plane itself, and what that would mean, and what the life cycle would mean. And what I mean life cycle is what would the upgrade procedure be if you have a federated control plane. So these are all kind of questions that have not really come up before we had met these days. So this is what this group is kind of tackling going forward. In terms of administrative stuff, you'll see some ongoing name changes. What has SIG Federation has become SIG multi-cluster, and in terms of tags or labels, I think we're moving towards area federation for what used to be federation. So it's going to be an ongoing process, and if there's too much churn, we'll be back here much quicker than I think our last update was probably 1 month ago. So we'll be back quicker to Thank you, Christian. Does anybody have any questions? All right, let's move on. SIG Windows with Michael.
Yeah, hi everybody. So it's been a while since we've made an update as well. A couple of major things have happened. Number one is Microsoft has made significant progress on the networking side for Windows. Very specifically, there's PRs that are already submitted, and some of them in progress for an IPAM plugin, as well as a CNI plugin for Windows. That's a significant investment by Microsoft that will allow us to have close to networking parity with Linux when we bring Windows containers into beta. Our specific beta work on the compute side has been a little bit delayed. We're short on resources over the summer. It's picking up now, so we've added a couple more resources lately that are going to help us. I'm not sure if we're going to end up making the deadline for 1.8, but looks like probably will not. but we'll proceed post 1.8 to have a good beta release before the end of the year and potentially go to GA soon after. Our work has mostly concentrated on storage lately and volumes and getting all of that working, including some of the beta support that exists on some of the storage artifacts on the kubelet. And that's been going very well. It's just slow. Other than that, we don't really have any other major update. The folks from Cloudbase that are working on the OB and OBS are heavily contributing, and they're starting to look into taking advantage of the work that Microsoft is doing on the CNI plugin. So that gives us a good roadmap on what will come next from SIG Windows.
I had one other thing to add, which is that we also have stats for Windows containers at this point, which unlocks heapster-based monitoring and pod auto-scaling for Windows containers.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Brendan.
All right, thank you, Michael. Any questions for SIG Windows? All right, and that leaves us with the announcements. So a reminder, sign up to vote if you're already a member of standing. Deadline for voter registration is Friday. I'm going to copy this link and drop it into the chat.
He means next Friday.
Next Friday.
Not this Friday. Yep.
Sorry, my bad. Next Friday. And office hours is next week, the 6th of September, 1 p.m. UTC.
Yep, we've got a comment on this side as well.
Sorry, I just wanted to mention also on the multi-cluster side, there is a move afoot and a plan to move the Federation portion, everything that's Federation right now in its own repo, and that's very significant. So I thought I'd mention that.
And then I'll go add on to the signing up to vote. If you're a member of standing, you do need to fill out the form. If you think you should vote and you're participating in the community and want to be a member of standing, please also sign up on the form and tell us why. We knew with our list that we generated initially that it was going to be incomplete. As an example, I was not part of that list. So we know that it is incomplete, so please do go out and add your name to the form if you think that if you wish to participate and vote. We are erring on the side of helping people that are participating in the community be able to engage and vote and help us make this community better.
Please fill out the reason field.
Yes, the reason field is important though. Because I love Kubernetes is not quite enough. We would like to know how you've been engaging with us. Did we really do this in 33 minutes? Any other topics? Oh, introduce yourself.
I'm Paris. I am a 9-day-old noodler under Sarah Novaki. I'm going to be doing a mentoring program, a voter's guide that will be out shortly, and other random ad hoc community goodnesses that I can help you with. That are non-coding related.
Yeah, so if you think you want to send me a message, send it to both me and Paris and George and Jace for a while.
I do have a correction again. The deadline next week is for nominees, but you should still go register to vote, please.
We'll just keep reminding everyone to
Yes.
register to vote, to get out the vote program.